All right, everybody, welcome back to the Convo. Couch Pasta Jardula here. I'm trying to mess with my lighting. I need to get this situated. I'm in a weird position where my window is right here, and it can get gloomy, and sometimes the lights take over. Sometimes it's too dark. I think I just need to upgrade my camera and take care of that, but I will do that, guys. That was the only constructive criticism I got for the last couple videos I did with Jimmy, and I want to thank you guys all for supporting me, literally coming on over to my Twitter and signing up over there. I've great numbers over the last couple days. Got a couple videos. I think there's 4 videos, 4 sections I did. 2 of the sections have over 250,000 views each one. Another video is getting up to close to 200,000. So I can't thank you guys enough for your support donations on my my Give Send Go. If you haven't seen my Give Send and Go, I'm going to put it up here right now. It's givesendgo.com/RFK media. I'm going to go do some grassroots media, guys. I'm going to do what's right. I'm going to get there Derrick Broze style, get a camera, get a microphone, and just show up, be very professional, be very nice, but be, very stern, and make sure we ask the tough questions that need to be asked, that the mainstream media is not going to ask. That's why independent media, citizen journalism means so much, and we are definitely going to do that. So help me out. Go to givesendgo.com/RFK media. If you haven't already seen my interview with Dr. Cornel West, please take a look at it. It is on the YouTubes. I asked him some tough questions. Actually, I think it was called the World Socialist website went after me today, called me a fascistic, alt-righter, anti-vaxxer, whatever, all one of those things. You can go check it out because I asked him the tough questions. I took it to him, and I plan, if RFK has a day off or two, I plan to go to one of these other campaigns. Whether it be Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy, Marianne Williamson, Cornel West, I plan to show up. I'm going to concentrate on RFK because I think that's where the movement is going right now, and that is the gentleman who has mass appeal across the board. So we'll do that. But let's talk about this whole situation. A lot of people are they're wondering if RFK gets cheated by the Democrats, and he more than likely will because that's what they do, will he run as an independent? And then people start talking about the sore loser laws. Are they allowed to do that? Because there are sore loser laws in certain states that say if you run as a Democrat in the primary, you're not allowed to run as an independent or a Republican in the general. A lot of people think those are unconstitutional. What I think is really unconstitutional is what happened just recently in Guatemala. It's the same thing that happened in Michigan. In Michigan, for the governor's race for Republicans, they left certain people off the ballot. They made up some fugazi excuse that the signatures they had were not valid, and they said that those person cannot make it on the ballot. These were Republicans. There was a Trump candidate who was left off the ballot. Well, they did the same kind of thing in Guatemala. They didn't really give a reason. Now we have another situation where one of my favorite guys out there, one of my favorite citizen journalists, is one of my favorite candidates by far. I really do like this guy. I think he has got a great plan together in his head, what he wants to see for the future and the vision of his town of Houston. And he's afraid to jump on the ballot and mix it up with those people. He's used the whole ideology of running for for office to his advantage to get his voice heard. And he is also, done amazing work in Utah when it came to the pedophilia scandal with the Mormon Church. Ladies and gentlemen, Derrick Broze is back on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me on, brother. I appreciate it.
No doubt, and I'm very happy that you wore that type of shirt over there. That's why I brought my Nicaraguan shirt to make sure I match it today, brother.
Yeah, see it. We're both rocking the roots.
So listen, it's awesome that you're here right now because I want to talk about some COVID origins. I want to bring up some stuff about what the CDC has planned moving forward. They have a new director of the CDC. Did you meet the new boss? Same as the old boss. We'll get into that. But first, I am an election integrity activist, and I go around these other Latin American countries, around our country here in the United States, chasing down these elections and observing them and seeing what's fair, what's not fair, scrutinizing them. One of the forms of voter suppression or election fraud, excuse me, it's not voter suppression. I mean, the voters get suppressed in this way, but election fraud itself, meaning it's not one person doing this, it's an entity trying to cheat somebody, is letting people, removing people from the ballot, not giving them ballot access. This happened in Guatemala just recently where the indigenous candidates were left off. United States State Department looked like they had ties to that. They look like they've been messing around in Guatemala for quite some time, overturning their governments back in the 50s for the United Fruit Company to go in there, which is now Chiquita and Dole. They did it in Michigan to the Republicans. So it's not just a Democrat thing that goes on. But now you're facing a similar situation, Derrick Broze. Tell us what's going on. Why are they trying to leave you off the ballot for running for mayor of Houston?
Sure. Thank you, brother, for giving me an opportunity to share about this. First, I want to preface it by also kind of patting you on the back for doing the good work that you have been doing. I actually did watch your Cornel West interview the other day, and I really do appreciate your, as you were just laying out your just doing the job that a journalist, freelance, independent journalist, or mainstream media journalist, any journalist should do, which is to ask difficult questions. And I definitely, yeah, I mean, you do a good job of being friendly, but also just putting his feet to the fire and saying, with Cornel West, where do you stand on this vaccine issue and the lockdown and stuff? So thank you for doing that. I think that's important. And I hope everybody will support you as you get out into the field to question RFK and others as well, because that's important work. So
Thank you.
as I mentioned, of course, brother, as I mentioned to you before a while back, I've been running for mayor of Houston since February. I decided late last year, but came here in Houston in January, had like an exploratory meeting with some friends and some porters, and we got a plan together and an idea together. I filed the paperwork in February, which the first step is you file for a campaign treasurer. And then since that time, myself and just a local group of volunteers, supporters who I've known over the years of doing activism out here in Houston for the last 14 years, we have an all grassroots volunteer run campaign. And we've been going to events all over the city. We've been talking to Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Independents, and we're getting a lot of support pretty much everywhere we go. People are taking Broze for Mayor shirts and yard signs and information. And I mean, we're at the point now where we're doing 5 or 6 events a week now with local races, which is coming up in just in November, so about 2.5 months away. Things really don't get heated up till July, August, right about this time. So now we're at the point where we've done a couple of forums. I was on a Pride forum 2 weeks ago. As I said, I've spoke to a Republican group last week, a Democrat group, had a Libertarian brunch this weekend. And things have been going well. And actually last week, a poll came out where the University of Houston, their political affairs program, they're the ones who usually do polling locally, which is the polls, as you know, is what people pay attention to judge whether rightfully or wrongfully, whether a candidate is serious or not. And our campaign showed up in the polls saying that 7% of likely voters would vote for us. So that's, we're excited about that and got all this positive momentum. And so we went to file for day one last Monday to be on the ballot. And I've been anticipating that this issue might come up. I've mentioned before I ran for mayor in 2019. I had no issue that time. I was very openly running as somebody who was convicted of a felony in 2005. I was arrested in 2005, actually got my conviction in 2008, and then I got off parole after serving my time in June 2009. And so that was well before anybody had, I got into journalism or activism or anything. It was just a completely different part of my life. 18 years ago now since my arrest and 13 years since my release. finally off that system.
Do you mind
And
if I ask
so,
what you were
go
convicted
ahead.
of? Do you mind if I just want to stay right there because I want to be honest with the audience as well, just so they understand. I know it was back in 2005, 2008, but what were you convicted of?
Yeah, I was convicted of possession of controlled substance for crystal meth. I was addicted to drugs at the time. I got arrested when I was 20 years old.
It wasn't like abuse or
No, there was
anything like that. It wasn't
nothing to do
hurting
with
somebody. It was
violence or theft or any kind of thing like that. It was
gotcha.
just a personal possession of drugs. I've told this story plenty of times, but yeah, after high school, between 18 and 20, I went from drinking all the time, taking ecstasy all the time, taking pills, and then I eventually got hooked on crystal. And I tried crystal January 2005, and I was locked up by November. So it was really that incident. The prison system didn't change my life or save my life or anything like that. It was a personal decision I made, but I definitely used that time. And because I come from a family of drug addicts and alcoholics as well, so I've kind of already experienced enough of that, and I knew that that's not what I wanted. And that was really the start of me discovering meditation, prayer, doing a lot of healing. And that all happened before I ever got into activism and journalism, starting in 2010. That happened a couple years after I got out of the prison system, started going to the library, applying for jobs, and dealing with life as a felon. And I just rediscovered that I'm an intelligent person. I like to read. I like to learn. I care about my community, and that's the path I've been on now for about 15 years. And so I ran in 2019 very openly discussing that, and there was no issue. There was some discussion about it where I noticed at the time people were talking about Texas state law is unclear if felons can technically run. And this is something I've had to educate myself on. There's a lot of effort from progressive and civil rights organizations that focuses on like felon reentry programs, and those are important. Talk about felons getting their voting rights back, but I haven't seen any organization that specifically tackles this problem of felons who might want to run for office. And then, as I've learned in the last few weeks, that there's some states that have it where at the extreme level you have it where some states say you never get your rights back, and then you have some states that say you can get your rights back, but you got to jump through these hoops and pay this thing and do this thing. And then there's other states where you get it back as soon as you do your time. And Texas is not one of those states. You get your voting rights back, and you can apply to get firearms rights back. And apparently, you can apply to get restoration of rights to run for office. But it's very unlikely. You have to go basically through the Board of Pardons and Parole, and ultimately, it has to be signed by the governor. The governor has to say, yes, this person, is absolved of all problems. And so there was a conversation around it in 2019 when I ran, but it didn't affect me. I ran effectively all the way to the end. I didn't become mayor. And so now this time we knew that there might be some discussion because following the 2019 election, although I didn't win, one of the other city council members, a woman named Cynthia Bailey, she actually got into the runoff because there's rarely ever a winner on the first round. It's always usually runoffs. So she got into the runoff as a felon, and the third place person sued her, and it turned into this year-long plus battle here locally in Houston where this conversation came up, and people were like, can felons run for office? In Austin, in the state capital, there was a man who was a felon. He ran for city council. He didn't win, but he was allowed to run. And then ultimately here in Houston, after a bunch of back and forth in the court, a judge did decide that she was allowed to stay on the ballot. She ended up losing, so it kind of didn't matter, but there's that one ruling. And then you have 2019 Texas State Attorney General Ken Paxton put out an opinion saying that he believes felons don't get their rights back and that serving your time is not enough. That doesn't automatically give this and all this kind of BS, but it's never been that, that's just his legal opinion. It's not the law. So all you have is Texas election code, which says if a person has been convicted of felony, they must either receive a pardon or be relieved from all resulting disabilities. And it's that line that nobody knows what the heck that means. Like the court, so
what does that mean?
Nobody knows. And, I believe that as doing my time, I don't owe any money to the state. It's been 15, 14 years that I have, my rights, not that they can take them from me, but as far as their terminology goes, I have those back. But the mayor's office disagreed. And last Monday, when I filed my paperwork to run again, as I did successfully in 2019, a couple days later, I received an official letter of rejection of my ballot application, specifically citing the Texas Attorney General's opinion from 2019, saying that, I'm not, I don't have my rights back. And basically, at this point, I have till August 21st at 5 p.m., which is the deadline to be on the ballot, to figure out a legal remedy. And I don't want to give away too much information just yet. I probably will be making an announcement the next day or so, but we are pursuing legal remedies because that's pretty much all I got now. So, I've spent the last 5 days talking to organizations and lawyers, and basically what would need to happen is probably sue the city and say, hey, keep him on the ballot. He paid already. He's got his receipt. You already received it. Keep him on the ballot until a judge rules on the matter, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the best bet that I can hope for, so that me and my team can just focus on the campaign and what we're doing, and focus on the positive message and the solutions we're trying to focus on, instead of fighting the state. But that's where it's at now. So, and then the other thing is, this would be a precedent setting case, because not only for Texas potentially, but depending on how high it went up, because there's apparently no other case yet that has tried to figure out, can felons constitutionally be deprived of the right to run for office, especially in my case where it was a nonviolent felony that doesn't involve any kind of, just, it is not like abuse or rape or murder or anything like that. It's a nonviolent felony. And so that's the question that's going to need to be answered. And like I said, I'd rather just focus on campaigning, getting to November 7th, because we had good news. I'm polling now. I'm polling in the polls. So that means I'm going to be eligible for some of these televised debates. I've got a bunch of forums and debates from all kinds of different groups in Houston, Republican. We're going to a Republican group on Thursday. We're speaking to the Log Cabin Republicans in a couple weeks, which are like the LGBTQ caucus of the Republican kind of movement. We're talking Democrats, and this is what I really want to focus on. But instead, something that happened to me when I was 20 years old, and I'm now 38, nearing 40, is still being used to try to justify why I shouldn't have a voice.
Yeah. Yeah, well, two things. Number one, it sounds very unconstitutional, right? Like in itself, it seems like they don't have the right to do that, and that could be tested being unconstitutional. I was talking about the sore loser laws, in which a lot of people are going, if RFK gets cheated by the Democrats, is he going to run as an independent? Will he say that and whatnot? And I was saying, well, he needs to first look at the sore loser laws. There's actual laws that in a certain state, if you run in either party in the primary, you're not allowed to run in the general. But people have talked about those being tested, that those could be unconstitutional. I see a parallel there with your situation, in which you can say, well, this is very unconstitutional. But the other part of it is, it's a double-edged sword. Not only is it just a tactic to maybe keep you off the ballot, if they don't succeed in doing so and you get on the ballot, you have to spend a lot of your resources and time and energy taking away from your campaign. So it is definitely an establishment move to keep you down and keep you silent,
Well,
So
and if
that's
I could
the way
add
I
to
look
that,
at this whole situation.
No, I agree with that. And that's, something that is on the mind of myself and my very grassroots team with our limited resources. The other thing is, and I don't know if this would play into the conversation or arguments and any potential legal battle that we might have ahead of us, but the current mayor, who is serving his final term and is on his way out, Mayor Sylvester Turner, who I probably mentioned to you at some point, because he's such a great example of how agendas like the World Economic Forum, United Nations Agenda 2030 and stuff work on the local level. Because this mayor, while he's serving as mayor, he sits on the chair of the Resilient Foundation, funded by the Rockefellers. He's part of the C40 mayors, and just all this kind of, he's bringing in these policies on the local level. Well, I've confronted this guy a dozen or more times during his time in office. He was awarded the 5G Wireless Champion Award by the wireless industry, and I confronted him all over the city about that. I've been dragged out of buildings by his security guards. When I ran in 2019, I was running at first kind of as just like I'm going to go confront him because he's running away from me at public. They're ignoring me at city council, and if I run for office, he can't ignore me. So I was able to call him out about his corruption face to face. But this rejection letter came directly from his office with his signature on it. So, I mean, if anything, I'm sure at least he took some pleasure in signing it. Now, whether or not that played into, or, the decision, or if they literally just think they have the law in their hands, I don't know. And I don't have time to speculate. I got a 3-week deadline. But all I know is that this is definitely, like you said, it's taking up resources and time that we could be putting on. And we're still doing our campaign and we're still moving forward. We just had a wonderful volunteer celebration yesterday, celebrating all the wins that we are having, that we're getting. I mean, it's really something beautiful, man. I do see, even though I don't agree with RFK on a lot of things, I see the parallels, the hopes that I think people have in him on a federal level with what we're doing locally, because we really are. I'm getting, just as an example, I've got recent support Texas Latino conservatives. If I can get on the ballot, we have a local, the Harris County Libertarian Party, ready to endorse and support me as well. I've also got this more left-wing progressive coalition called the Rise Houston, which is focused on the shot spotter surveillance tools that I've been talking about for years. There's finally a coalition coming together to try to get them out of the police's hands, and I'm the only candidate talking about it. So we're literally pulling together, pro-privacy, civil liberties, leftists and liberals with conservatives, with libertarians and independents. And even though we're 7% compared to this other percent, there's still 22% undecided voters in Houston. There's 3 months to go, and we've got some big plans. So I'm trying to put all my energy into that. But for the moment, I'm having to, kind of deal with this legal side just to make sure that I can stay on the ballot. And, for me, me, I'm pretty much, I consider myself an anarchist. I'm doing this to reach people and to get ideas out there. So having to even play these kind of games with the state, it really does make me sick because, for one, I've never had anybody ask me to see my background, my felony history, to write an article for them, to produce a documentary, to do a public talk or anything like that. So this doesn't affect my life in any way. It's only now that I'm trying to interact with the state that it's being brought up and thrown back in my face. And that's just, it is what it is. But typically this doesn't affect my life in any way.
Well, let me just say this much. First of all, I think the only criticism or small little bit, I don't even think it's a pushback, a bit of advice I would say is, let's say when you get back on the ballot, let's manifest it, because I think that's going to happen.
I feel that. Thank you, brother.
And let me tell you something, man. You are my spirit animal. You don't even understand how important you are to my lifestyle, right? I was in Nicaragua with a bunch of anti-imperialist leftists, a lot of socialists and a lot of those people who do that work for years. And I've been able to get into these spaces and talk about, globalist agendas, talk about what's going on. I've mentioned your name many times. I don't support RFK. I do think he's the best candidate running for president, and I am very thankful his campaign bringing up issues. But if he were to offer me a job today, I would say no. I would say no to most campaigns, you know what I'm saying? Because I want to do my job. But yours is a campaign I might think about going to work for and volunteering my time for, because you are such a unique candidate. You are hitting things on all cylinders, and you are very much respected by that. And I don't want to, put people in boxes or classifications that true the community. When I asked you that question, you're like, I don't know if I would consider myself a truther, but I'm always seeking the truth. Well, regardless, you're very well respected by that community, especially the work you did for TLAV and the work you did on the whole Mormons and the pedophilia situation. But the fact that you're running in a system where they are so just opposed to that group, they're like, oh my God, I think you just bring this unique perspective to the table, and being able to have these conversations and talk to everybody, not afraid to talk to everybody. Because some people would be like, oh my God, like Derrick Broze is talking to an LGBTQ community. Of course he is, because he's going to go out and talk to everybody. And he's going to be able to get in these spaces and tell these stories where people won't be able to look at. When I was talking about the World Economic Forum in Nicaragua, and I was talking about Tavistock, which they never heard about Tavistock. They didn't even know about DARPA. I was able to bring on this whole perspective. And so many people came to me at the end or hit me up. It's like, Pasta, thank you for telling me these things. We were never looking in this direction. And I think that's what a Derrick Broze brings to the table. So I am so thankful for your campaign. And I just can't wait for you to get back on that ballot, because it's going to happen, and for you to continue kicking ass and bringing these issues up and talking to everybody.
I appreciate that,
There's too much of this red team, blue team bullshit. And I think you really provide that perspective. And I can't thank you enough for your campaign and for you running for mayor of Houston. It's amazing. It truly is, Derrick.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Yeah, I mean, I'll just add to that. If anybody is interested, if you do know people in Houston, I know we're broadcasting all over the place, but if you know people near Houston or Texas, you can just check out my website, just my name, DerrickBroze.com. That's for the campaign. And I know you're raising money for your important media venture. If you guys can give to Pasta, then you got a couple of extra bones to throw my way as well. We are doing a fundraiser right now, because outside of this legal stuff, our goal is to get some billboards around the city the next couple months and really put the messages up big and bold. And so we could use all the support you got. And yeah, if you are in the Houston area and you care enough to come out and give your time and energy, that always goes far as well. So, I appreciate you giving me a chance to speak on that, brother.
No doubt. Where can people buy a shirt? I think that's a really important thing. Let's buy some Derrick Broze t-shirts. Let everybody know where they can buy a shirt. I'm going to order a shirt. I'm going to order one for Jamie Cheese Slice, my engineer, right now too, as well, because not only can you give a few bucks to the campaign, but you can also sport your colors out there. And I would love a Derrick Broze t-shirt. Where can people go buy those?
I appreciate that. I would love to get you one. Right now, if people just go to the DerrickBroze.com website, there's a contact page. Just send us a contact message first if you can through there. I'll get it directly. We got to set that up to ship them elsewhere, because obviously we're focused on Houston, but I would happy to get you one and anybody else who wants to rock it and show support.
Yeah, well, let's do that. Let's get into some juicy stories while we got you here, because I can make the most of it. Other than the fact of just contacting you directly, is there anything else you want to say to the people, how they can help you with this situation in Houston before we get on to the next stories?
I mean, it really is just get the word out, man, because, I'm running against two career politicians, Sheila Jackson Lee, John Whitmire. They've been in there for 30 plus years. Every major candidate, as the local media calls it, these 5 candidates are all deeply tied to the corporate Democratic Party and really don't have much of anything substance. So We are polling at 7%. We're grateful for that. But in order to go higher, which is what they'll use to whether to qualify or disqualify me from these televised debates, we just need people to know my name, to hear about the campaign. So the more people who hear about it, the better we're off.
Yeah. Well, those polls are skewed anyways, but hopefully we can get you going and get you
I
on
know.
that stage. It'd be amazing to see you on that stage with them. Amazing. Let's talk about COVID. Before we talk about the origins, I want to bring up this one quick story because this is something a lot of people told. You know, we said about the QR code travel passes that they're going to do that. We talked about the websites, which you have the health things when you had to go in and register on. We saw them in Canada. But the CDC is likely to recommend an annual COVID shot similar to the flu, the director says. And we have the new, like I said, here we go. You meet the new boss, same as the old boss. In an interview with Spectrum News, Dr. Mandy Cohen, who's a new director for the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, said that her agency is likely to come out with guidance in the fall for Americans that they should get an annual COVID-19 booster to protect against the coronavirus. So let's just jump into the video and hear it from the horse's mouth. And then I want to get your thoughts on this because this is something we said eventually that they're going to have it and make it so that you have to annually get your flu and your COVID shot. You got that video there? Cheese Slice, it should be right below it. There you go. Beautiful.
As Dr. Mandy Cohen walks into a room of CDC staffers, it has the feel of a first day of school.
Hi.
Employees assessing the new boss, the boss hoping to get to know her team, an agency that consists of 20,000 staffers around the world. This is the first gathering of what Cohen's calling Meetups with Mandy, a laid-back gathering she hopes to replicate. The internal medicine physician, mother of two, who regularly wears a Hebrew high necklace, meaning life, had early inspiration to get into the medical field. Her mom was a nurse practitioner.
I saw how her work really impacted not just the person she was serving, but their families and then communities.
We joined Cohen in Atlanta at the CDC's headquarters shortly after President Joe Biden chose her as director, replacing Dr. Rochelle Walensky, who recently stepped down. What was it about the CDC that made you say, I want to get back into the public sector?
So when an opportunity to lead an agency whose mission is to protect the health of this nation and frankly the world, it was easy to get to yes. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Mandy Cohen.
Cohen became a household name in North Carolina, leading the state's Department of Health and Human Services during the height of the COVID pandemic. At every turn, Cohen, armed with her graphs and preaching what were known as the 3 W's, spoke to North Carolinians through constant press conferences. She gained respect from both sides of the aisle in this politically purple state.
While we saw trust go down in lots of institutions, we actually saw trust increase in North Carolina. So we measured trust in the Department of Health and Human Services, and we saw that increase.
But being trustful is not something the agency she now heads has recently become known for. A study published in March by Health Affairs found 26% of Americans in a survey last year did not have a lot of trust in the CDC. Do you think, though, there were things that could have been done differently at the CDC?
Folks have